Welcome in, Warchant TV, warchant.com. He's Warchant's managing editor. Ira Schafel, I'm Jeff Cameron, wildly popular talk show host. Ira, deception, outright lies, and peace, say the ACC, or at least their attorneys, in response in Leon County Circuit Court accusing the conference of all of those misrepresentations. You wrote about it for warchant.com. Let's discuss, amongst the interesting things here, not only claims of lies and misrepresentations, but also language that suggests Florida State is as good as gone, if you didn't know it already.
Yeah, and to clarify, I don't think the ACC's attorneys use the word lies. That's our word. They went with misrepresentations. So maybe in the next documents they'll use the word lie. But yeah, this was from a procedural standpoint. This isn't like a huge filing in the course of a lawsuit. Basically, Florida State filed their lawsuit. In their amended lawsuit, the ACC asked for a stay of discovery in this case. They basically want the judge to put a pause on the case in Leon County because they've got their own case that they filed up in North Carolina. They want that to move on before the case in Leon County moves on. So that's all normal. And Florida State filed their response explaining to the judge why they shouldn't do that, why this case should move forward here in Leon County. And but so that's the procedural part of it. But there were some interesting things inside of it, like you said, some of the language Florida State used about being exiting the ACC almost as it's a formality, and then also some of the hostilities. This has been kind of the temperature has been rising at each filing, from Florida State's first lawsuit to their amended complaint to now here. They just kind of keep raising the level of intensity with their arguments. And does that mean much in terms of the legality of the arguments, or does it mean much in terms of getting out of the conference as quickly as they want to? I don't know, maybe not, but it shows how basically how broken this relationship is, and how determined Florida State is to get out.
Yeah, as you pointed out in the article, the attorneys use a version of the phrase "after FSU exits the ACC." I think we all like to read that as Florida State fans. If I could talk on behalf of Florida State fans for a second, that's fun because no more beating around the bush, Ira. I mean, we all know where this is headed, and Florida State has made their intentions very, very clear. And while they did not outright accuse the ACC's attorneys of lying, they did say that they, quote, were fudging the truth and they've been loose with the facts.
Well, those might have been my paraphrasing of what they wrote, but we're all saying the same thing. Yeah, they're basically saying that there's been some bait and switch. They used a word. I don't know if Tom can find it in the document and behind the scenes and pull up the word. It's a word I had never heard of from before, but it basically means sleight of hand or deceit. So I learned a new SAT word reading this document last night. But yeah, it's and they use different phrases to describe deception. But I think the change in tone, again, the rhetoric, you talk about exiting the ACC. If you go back and read the initial lawsuit from Florida State, they never even said we want to leave the ACC. They were very careful to basically just say, if that ever happened, basically hypothetically speaking, we just want to know what the remedy would be, like what it would cost to get out of this conference if we ever wanted to leave. Not saying we want to leave, but if we ever wanted to leave. And I actually had people high up at Florida State tell me after that lawsuit was filed that, look, we've never said we're leaving. And we've made that clear to the ACC. We're not saying we're leaving. We just want to know what the options are. Then, Clemson filed their lawsuit and they were much more direct and basically said, you're stopping us from leaving the conference with this league, with your rules. We don't like that. We want to move on. So they kind of raised it a little bit. And now Florida State, as I said, 3 different places in the lawsuit says, basically talks about what's going to happen when Florida State exits the ACC. I mean, and again, it's one word and it's one kind of sentence. And in the normal world, like with the way a lot of us use words, and maybe we don't choose our words carefully, that's one thing. The fact that their attorneys, when filing a legal document, use that phrase 3 times, I think sends a pretty strong message.
Legerdemain?
Yes.
Legerdemain.
Good luck for you, buddy. Yeah, legerdemain. I didn't get the pronunciation, but it's a
noun, skillful use of one's hands when performing conjuring tricks.
In the exactly. They've got Jim Phillips doing magic tricks. Yeah. But
hey, buddy, don't you do that legirdimaining around here. There it is.
And so where they used that was in reference to the affidavit filed by Virginia's president, President Ryan, who I believe that's his name, who basically Jim Ryan, who said that the ACC had no option but to sue Florida State. This kind of goes back to why the ACC sued Florida State before Florida State had even sued to leave the conference. And, they said that Florida State breached their contract. Well, Florida State's point is, how could you file a document saying we breached our contract when we hadn't even filed our complaint yet? So we hadn't breached anything. And then on top of that, they used a phrase throughout the Virginia president's affidavit, and then also in their amended complaint, they used a phrase about basically, I can't remember it's a 3-word phrase, but maybe Tom can help us out with that. But they used the same phrase from the ESPN agreement, basically saying this part of the ESPN contract compelled us as the ACC to do everything we can to protect that contract. We couldn't let this go on because our duty to ESPN is to do everything we can to fight to preserve this contract. So then the judge in North Carolina last week, and I don't know if this was written about or not, but these documents are in the filing from last night. The judge in North Carolina asked ACC and FSU, where are you guys getting this phrase? What exactly does it mean in terms of this contract? So the ACC again was like, well, we're not going to give you the whole contract, but we'll give you that language. And they sent them that language, and it's included in my article. It doesn't say anything like that. And so Florida State, again, is saying they misrepresented to the court that they had to do this. They had to file this lawsuit, but nothing in that contract actually says that. Commercially reasonable efforts. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. It is present throughout your article there that is referenced, commercially reasonable efforts. But this is, again, part of the sleight of hand that they're sort of alleging here, or using or positing towards the ACC. They're saying, look, you didn't have to do that. Actually, if you look at this, and if we had the whole picture, if we read everything and not snippets of what you presented, then we would see that it wasn't a requirement that you sue Florida State, is what they're saying.
Yeah, and that's the case they are really pushing. And Florida State started doing this pretty early on. If you go back to remember before they even filed the lawsuit, I believe it was before the lawsuit. Florida's Attorney General asked for the ESPN contracts to be made public or to be sent to her office. She wanted to look over them. Then Florida State talked about it some. Clemson really hammered that point home that the ESPN contract needs to be released to both parties so they can see it. From our understanding, Florida State and all these other schools sent attorneys to North Carolina last year to look at all the documents. And I thought they had seen the whole entire ESPN documents, and maybe they did, but maybe their point is they want to be able to actually have it in their hands, not just have to go to the ACC offices to look at it. Or it sounds like maybe they didn't get to see the whole document when they were up there visiting. I'm not sure. It's hard to know what the ACC is saying is confidential and these schools can't see. But I think that goes back to the root argument. Neither one of us are attorneys, but you're telling us we're beholden to this contract, a contract that we can't even see. So how can we be parties of it? It's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, as laymen, it seems patently absurd that I would be bound by something I'm not allowed to even read. I'm not even allowed to look at. This doesn't make any sense, right? So, again, we don't know. Maybe there's legal recourse for all of this. Maybe there's not. I don't know. But obviously, there seems to be mounting frustration amongst members of the ACC. It's not any longer just Florida State. Now it's Clemson and Florida State. And it seems to be North Carolina as well. And this list is only going to grow, methinks, given what the language is in stories like the one you've written here. We're starting to see this ratcheted up, is your point. And I think now all the gloves are off, obviously.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. So the next big date in this case is April 9th. That's when the Leon County course is supposed to move forward. The judge in North Carolina, the
judge said he would have an answer for
Exactly. So the judge in North Carolina said he would have his response to Florida State's request to dismiss that case up there or stay it up there by April 9th so that the judge in Leon County can act with knowledge of how they feel up there. So, we still have about a little over a week before that comes. So we'll see how quickly those rulings come and where they favor, which way they favor. But, it just feels like, again, because the big question I think on FSU fans' minds is, when can Florida State get out and what's it going to cost? And probably more so just when can they get the hell out? But the cost is a big part. Well, again, I think this is every time Florida State files a document like this, it just seems like the door is closing almost completely. I mean, again, I had people at FSU saying as of, in recent weeks or months, anyway, the last month or two, that, the door's open. Like if the ACC wants to come back and say, look, Florida State and Clemson, you guys get 30% of the TV revenue and everybody else splits the rest, then maybe they would stay. That door was a possibility. The way they're writing now, it just seems like it's a foregone conclusion, which I don't think anybody around Tallahassee is complaining about.
Our own Ira Schafel doing the best reporting on this story, gaining insight by the day. Make sure you check into Warchant TV. And, of course, the article is on warchant.com. More as it presents itself, Ira. Another discussion you and I will have in a separate video or maybe on the Jeff Cameron Show or somewhere along the way is how it is that everybody seems to have a pretty clear understanding that in the not-too-distant future, Florida State will not be a member of this conference. And yet if you read national writers, they would have you believe there's zero chance Florida State's getting out of this, and they're not desired by any conference in America. So the disconnect continues nationally. Luckily, locally, we have you, and people like you who do a great job. So we appreciate it, buddy. Talk to you again real soon. Until next time, everybody, make sure you subscribe to Warchant TV and warchant.com to get the latest on FSU's fight to get out of the ACC.